Good evening. It is 5:25 on June 27th, and this is a meeting of the Law and Ordinance Committee. My name is John Schweizer. To my right is Mr. Todd Sievert, and we are here to discuss two items, one of them being the Trex transfer and something else.
Toward the donut.
What is it?
Toward the donut.
Toward a donut, that's it. Mr. Tedderington?
You want to take them both, or should I separate?
Can we do them both at once?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So the first item is we received a Trex liquor license application from Kroger. It would be a D1 liquor license. Trex is a special process that the state allows if the council declares an economic development purpose. The reason for the Trex in this case is that we as a community have reached our quota of D1s. However, again, the state allows you to exceed that if it's for an economic development purpose, which would basically be, whatever you determine to be economic development. Kroger's definitely has enhanced our community. They just put quite a bit of money into basically a brand new store, a supermarket, superstore, can't think of marketplace, and so now they are asking to change their C1 permit to a D1 with the Trex. We recommend that. Don't have a problem with it. I do want to note that there is an ordinance that was passed in 2007 when we received our first Trex application. They were brand new, and the council wanted to set some parameters, just not knowing what kind of demand there might be out there. The council limited permits, Trex permits, to 2. We have 2 out there right now for Speedway at 2 locations. When council approves Trex, the committee report would be read, and there would be a motion made at that time. There's no legislation approving a Trex application other than a voice vote on the motion. However, in this case, since there is this two limit, we're recommending that the council amend that ordinance to take off the limit, and then each time we get an application, the committee and the council can consider that application on its own and on its own merits, regardless of the number. Is
a Trex, I understand what a Trex is, but you said this Trex was for a D5. D1, I'm sorry. Is it umbrella for all classifications? In other words, if we are out of C1s, does that Trex limit still apply to a C1 or any other type?
I don't think that the Trex defined which license.
Any categories.
It was any of the liquor permits that have limits that we've, that have quotas that we've already met.
At the time, I remember I was sitting in the audience when this was all going on, and I think the limit that was placed on the Trex transfers was 2. Would it be easier for us to just take that up to 5 and not have to work with it again? I mean, what is staff's recommendation?
Our recommendation is you just take it on a case-by-case basis, particularly with the activity and the interest in just the downtown area, not knowing what kind of turnover may be happening in the next 6, 12, 18, or even 24 months with some of our vacancies downtown, a couple of which are fairly high profile, and may or may not involve restaurant activity. Setting some kind of an arbitrary limit may just be an additional ordinance or additional legislation that then has to be considered at that time, when in fact each Trex, this committee or the committee that it's assigned to, has to determine and then get the council to vote on that particular Trex anyway. So each time you consider the Trex, a particular application, you can be saying, well, we've already got 5, do we want a 6th, or do we want a 10th, or
So why don't we just rescind the legislation?
That would be a way to amend ordinance 14.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We'll just rescind it, we'll get rid of it, and then
I
it's
don't
just-
want to use a word because I don't know which direction Grant would be advising us on which the easiest way to do it.
Okay, but the concept potentially is not that we modify the existing to say an unlimited number, because I would feel uncomfortable doing something to modify that legislation much more than I would just rescinding this legislation and saying, okay, this is how this council feels, we should just get rid of that instead of modifying the work of others.
If that's the will of the committee, we will communicate that with Mr. Kerber.
I'd be good with that.
Yeah, I just think that makes more sense.
Can you talk a little bit about what a D5 permit is? How's it going to
D1.
change? D1, I did it again. How it changes from a C1 to a D1?
Do I know that?
Your note says it's for beer only on-premises consumption, that's original seal container for carry-out only until 1 a.m.
That's correct.
So,
There
here,
are so many.
Well, I know, I read that, I read that.
Yeah, you need a chart for these. I mean, there's so many different, that's what is coming off of the application. So that's what they would be restricted to be able to do.
Well, and right now, I've heard that they only sell samples or 2-ounce samples. I've heard.
because again,
And are they going to be allowed to have full pours now rather than just samples?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what this change does for them. And is that just at that bar that they have there, or can they carry that throughout the store?
It's the
I
Kroger
think
location.
I think it's just within the store. It's got to be confined within the store at that address.
Okay.
So technically they could. That'd probably be an internal management decision as to whether they want people wandering around. But they are set up with that bar, that wine and beer and alcohol bar.
you have some good Starbucks holders, you could just kind of stick them in there
Well,
and
yeah,
walk
I
around.
guess you could. So we don't want to corrupt our youth.
As your court-appointed attorney,
I'm just kidding. I'm sure they'll figure out how to best handle that issue.
do you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions? So we're talking two pieces of legislation or just?
Talking about one motion when the committee report is read, and then one piece of legislation to rescind.
To rescind.
And is this emergency?
No.
Okay. Mr. Siebert?
I'm good with that.
I'm good with it. Let's move forward.
All right, next item. Mrs. Knight, you want to present this one? Say no. Well, I guess we don't have a...
I can if you wish. Okay. This is the usual annual for the last few years agreements associated with Tour de Donut and Donut Jam. Their dates are in the memo, which I turn the page over so I don't have it in front
August
of me.
23rd,
Yes,
24th.
yes, a Friday, Saturday. The details are really just as they have been in the past. We're trying to get this before you now so that the legislation could be considered with for the agreements, which would include the notwithstanding legislation, because there will be an alcohol venue, which is an enclosed venue, although it's open. It's a totally open venue, but there are gates at the alcohol venue, as there has been. The location is again bounded by the crosswalks at first crosswalks out of the square, and this year it will be bounded there on West Main instead of going clear down to Cherry, because there will be other youth activities out on that part of Cherry Street and include Prouty Plaza.
Are these dates included in our floating tent days?
I do believe that they are.
Okay, so they will have available, because we define that to certain days, right, that the tents are available?
Oh, the floating tents, yes, that is one of
Yes.
them.
So that will be
That's my
during the...
understanding,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Those will be available this
Okay.
year.
And
Go ahead.
And because there is always a few people who like to camp in Community Park, that would include also in the notwithstanding language that there could be the camping in Troy Community Park. When you considered the camping at Treasure Island Park, it was mentioned that other petitions or applications would be considered on a case-by-case
Right.
basis. There's just usually maybe 10 to 15 people, if that, but some people do enjoy that type of camping. But it starts with closing the square, I think around 11 o'clock, because it was a lot of setup getting ready for the concerts. Mainly on Friday night, it is the concert and the children's activities. The registration also for Be the Match, the registration for the bicycle race. They're estimating on Saturday approximately 3,000 people, we think, for the bicycle race if the weather cooperates. There will also be entertainment on Saturday morning and early afternoon. There will be the Columbus Zoo coming back. It's very popular, not just with children and youth, but with adults. The alcohol venue would start, I think, at only like 11:30, I think, to 2 on Saturday in the afternoon. The race will go, it's not defined necessarily this time exactly as miles, but close to. Most of it is outside the city. We've been meeting with sheriff deputies, so we're working with them. So because they're handling a great deal of the activity. So there's a route mapped out for all the 3 rides. There is a map for the people who are doing walking with Be the Match, and lots of other children's activity and rides. It's basically the same activity that's happened in the past. I think it's been very popular.
This may sound like a convoluted question, but I just want to make sure, because I read through it briefly. Rocket Ship reimburses us for our overtime costs, and not Troy Main Street, right?
Yes, they also do.
Troy Main Street does
If there
as
are
well.
overtime costs, and we do everything we can to limit that.
Oh, okay.
It isn't a very large amount
Well, but we
of money.
fund Troy Main Street, and then, so we're really,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. We'll talk about that later, but that seems kind of, I mean, we give people money to give back to us, but we should maybe look at that when we look at how we fund them next time, maybe, and include that in some sort of pro forma. But Rocket Ship pays us, correct?
Yes, if there is associated overtime. And the fact that some of these, parts of these events lap over each other, that's always something that, they work out internally.
Do we do that for Strawberry Festival?
I'm sorry?
Does Strawberry Festival reimburse us?
Yes, we received a check this year for $5,000 to be over and above what we set as our limit, as the city's limit.
Okay, good. I'm just curious.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no,
I'm good.
yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments?
This
Okay.
is not emergency.
It doesn't need emergency, yeah.
We're good to move forward.
All right.
Anything else to come before law and ordinance?
No, sir.
We are adjourned.